All right, you may hear back there there's some vocals in our music now, because just as vocals present the words and the main information of the song, so does text and titling in a movie poster or any video editing application of Photoshop. So we laid our background track, our drum track, which was our gradient color. We laid in our bass line to kind of give it rhythm and flow and orient us with our subordinate image. We put in our solo guitar, or lead guitar, for our dominant image to really draw us and attract us. And then now our text and titling is kind of like the singing, gives us the information that we need to convey specifically. So first thing we're going to place the motocross title. I want to do that. I wasn't really happy with the way this was looking on the last, so I'm going to do a couple things to some housekeeping on blending. I want to get rid of the blue that I brought in down here when I added blue to the dominant image. So I'm going to go ahead and try to figure out why my layers are locked all of a sudden. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and down here with the marquee tool, I'll highlight that and delete that, and that lets me kind of get rid of some of that blue that I had spilling over on the blend down there. The other thing, I think I'm going to desaturate the main images, so I have the main image selected. I'm going to come up here to Image, Adjustments. I'm going to desaturate it just a little bit more. I want just a little bit more contrast. I'm thinking probably somewhere in that neighborhood, because that's really letting the Kawasaki rider just pop off the screen a little bit more. Hit OK. Okay, I like that. It looks a little bit better. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at adding the title. So we're going to add a new layer down here. Go ahead and drag that layer to the top, and we're going to come over here and we're going to use the T for the text tool. We're going to drag a text box out, and then we're going to go ahead. I'm going to make sure I have Bummer Italic is the name of the font. I have 140 point size, sharp, motocrossed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that, click and drag that, come up here on the box, I'm going to change that to white. I'm going to also, while I have the text layer, I'm going to hit the drop down and add some drop shadow to it. This is important because we're going to eventually kind of twist this and lay this flat and scale it underneath the rider's boot. So we want to make sure we have enough distance. So I'm going to go ahead and drag my distance out farther than I normally would, so it looks like it's hovering a foot or so above the ground. I'm going to increase the spread, the size rather, a little bit, so it looks a little bit blurry, so you can still make it out. And the opacity, I'm going to drop the opacity just a little bit so I can start to see some of the layers of the shadows of the dirt come through. So that's what I really want. I want to be able to see. Hit OK, and now I have my text, my title in place. Now in the original poster, it's up underneath his foot, but it's also scaled in a perspective format. Now I'm going to show you something. If I have this highlighted right now and I go up to Edit, Transform, you're going to see that if I go to Scale, it's going to let me scale this way and this way. I'm not going to apply that. Let me also show you Edit, Transform, Skew. Skew is going to let me lay one side over or another side, but I want to skew both sides. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm not going to save any of that. Instead, I'm going to make this layer of text, I'm going to make this layer an actual image layer. So I'm going to go up to my marquee tool. I'm going to make sure I surround all of the motocrossed. I'm going to go Command C, and then I'm going to create a new layer. And this is a great thing about layers, because I was originally on that layer only, I wasn't getting all the dirt and everything behind it. If I did it right, I should only be getting the motocrossed. And on this new layer, I'm going to paste that motocross on the new layer. I'm going to go back and turn off the eyeball of the original motocross. Now, you see we lost the drop shadow. We can do that again. Now this is a square image that I can work with a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Edit, Transform. I'm going to go Scale first, because I want to kind of stretch it out a little bit. like it's being pulled in a stretched fashion. I'm gonna go back real quick and look at my source poster and see. Well, that's height-wise. I need to scale that up a little bit more. Just trying to get an idea of height-wise how big it needs to be. So I'm gonna come in, edit, transform, scale. Probably about like that. And now I want to get that effect of it laying towards the rider. So I'm going to go edit, transform, skew, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try using the theory of perspective, where everything funnels in a plane to a specific point. I'm going to use this to kind of create that sense of it being laid over. The important thing is, however far I bend this, I need to bend that to keep it about the same. That looks pretty good right there. I'm going to apply that, and we can do a little trickery to it to make it look like it's floating. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add that drop shadow back in. I'm going to use the arrow tools to center it. So I have this layer selected. I'm going to drop shadow it. Again, I want that distance to look like it's floating a couple feet off the ground. I'll probably go about right in there. I'm going to raise the size just so it blurs a little bit. And then I'm going to drop the opacity a little bit, not too much. And right in there. I'm going to drop the size down a little bit more, just so I get a little bit more definition to it. One other thing I'm going to do to give the lettering some texture, I'm going to hit bevel and emboss, and see how it curled the edges for me. Just kind of makes it look like it's three-dimensional. I hit OK. I've got my title in there, motocrossed. Now I'm going to hit Command plus to zoom in. Now in the original poster, the guy's boot is sticking over the top. Let me show you a little trick, a quick little way to do that. I'm going to go back to that layer. I'm going to turn off the text real quick, click the layer that has his boot on it, our subordinate image. I'm going to use the polygonal lasso real quick, and I'm going to lasso his boot. Not all of it, just the portion that I want to stick above. I'm going to probably follow this black part of his Alpine Star boot right here. Go all the way around. Maybe pick up a little bit of dirt right there. And I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go layer via copy. What this is doing is making a copy of that little spot right there to a new layer. Layer 2, I'm just going to call that boot so I know what it is. I'm going to drag that all the way up to the top. And when I turn on that layer, now you see that piece of boot is sticking out over the motocross. Command minus to zoom back out. And look at that. We've got our title in. We've got, just to review here, we used the text tool, created a new layer, used the text tool, typed it in, made sure our font said the right font. We changed the color. We then copied and pasted it as an image. We used scale to stretch it out, skew to lay it over. We added a drop shadow, bevel and emboss to give it a little substance, and then made a copy of his boot to a new layer and drug that layer on top. And now we have our motocrossed in there. And we're getting there. We're only a couple steps away from having a complete movie poster.